you'll have to go to adobesign.asu.edu to sign in. If you're not yet signed into ASU, then you may have to sign in with your ASU ID and your password, and you may be asked for your Duo two-factor authentication. This is the page where you should be landing on. And so there's basically three main steps to creating a web form. The first one is that you have to have a Word, basically your form either in Word or in PDF. Then the second step is going to be that we'll create a template, and the third step is that we're going to create an actual web form. On this page here, what we're going to click on Create a Reusable Template. And then you should see this page here. And so there's usually different ways to do it, to go about it. You can, if you have two monitors, it's easy to actually drag and drop your files in that field here, or you can also go to Add Files, and then you can choose. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select Choose Files from my computer, and then you go and find your actual folder. And I have this AdobeSign practice form, and I'm going to click on that. So as you'll notice, when you actually either drag a folder or a form document into this field, or you add it as a file, then the title or the name of the template will automatically load as well. So the other way to go about it is you put the title there if you want to have a different title, and then you go ahead and you upload the form. Okay, on the right side, under template type, you want to select reusable form field layer. I'm sorry, we're actually going to select both. And then, depending on what you want to do, if you're the only one who's going to work on this form, you're going to keep this as only me who can use this template. In the grad SOS department, we actually set up a group. So I'm going to click on SOS Grad, and when that is done, we're going to click on Preview and Add Fields. And then what AdobeSign is actually going to do is it is uploading that document. All right, so on the right side, we can just click on the X here. We can remove that little blue area. On the right side, you'll see where it says Template Properties. Under that, it says Recipients, Participant 1. And then under that, there are a variety of different fields. So we have Signature field. This is the one that by default opens automatically. We have Signer Info fields. We have Data fields, More fields, and Transaction fields. So under these different fields, we then have specific fields that we can drag into our form. So, for example, on this form, the first step is to fill out student information. So what we'll do is, instead of using signature fields, because the student is actually not going to sign the form, the student is just going to fill in the form eventually. Okay. So what we'll do is we go to Data fields. And there we have text input. So we drag that into the field for the student name. And then in the bottom right corner, you can click on that to adjust the size of that field. Okay, so then the next step, the easiest way to go about doing this, you could repeat dragging text input fields all over your document. But the easiest way to go about this is you right-click on the field that you just created, and you click on Copy Field, and then it automatically gives you a second field, which you can then drag down here. Because later on we want to make sure that this document looks good, we can actually go ahead and click on the top one, and then press your Shift key and click on the bottom one. So both of these fields are activated. And then on the top here, next to field templates, you see various options of what you can do with this. So what we'll do is we'll align this to the right. That way these two fields are going to align exactly. Okay, that will make our form look really good. All right, then we're going to repeat the process for text input. Here, for some reason that at this point I don't understand, it will automatically adjust to the size of that cell or that field. So you can either leave it like that or you can adjust it. So there is an option to run reports of the Adobe DocuSign forms that have been submitted. And of course, then the report will have titles above the columns. So in order to make sense of the report, we want to make sure that the titles above the columns are going to be specific. So what we'll do is we are going to double click on the field, and then at the top where there is a pencil, we click on that pencil, and then we can change the name of that field. So we're going to call this student name. And then here's a square that says required. Since we want the student to fill this out, we're going to check that off. And then at the same time, there's a little asterisk, a red asterisk that's going to appear on the form to indicate that this field is required. We can scroll down, we can click on OK, and then we've designated what type of field that is. We're going to do the same for the next field. We'll call this student email. And because I've already done this with a bunch of other forms, this is showing up automatically. We'll make that required as well. Click on that.
So I made a form and I didn't say what each box was.
Well, if you didn't specify it, then if you run a report, I don't really know if we're going to need reports or not on this.
Oh.
But then it will just have this generic name field, like field 1, field 2, you know.
Oh.
And so then you may or you may not know what information is in that column. You know.
Why would you need to run a report? I'm just curious what the purpose is. Do you know?
You know, maybe you might want to report to see how many times the same person is on the committee, or how long does it take for the average form to go through the whole process from the time that the student fills it out to the time that it's been approved and, for example, entered in PeopleSoft. So, you know, it kind of depends on the need connected to the form.
Or if we did like liability forms for camp, and we needed to download
Gotcha,
that information to
yeah.
spreadsheet, camp with us.
Yeah.
And you can, just so you know, you can go in and change the templates.
Yes, you
Like if
can.
I wanted to go back and do that, I could.
You can,
Yeah.
yeah, yes.
I also want to say on the right, under data fields, if you go down a little bit, there's ones that say name and email address already.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. And there's some catches with that though, you know. So I'll get to that in a second. All right. So then we're gonna define the 10-digit ASU information that we want. So we're gonna put student ID. We're gonna make that required. And in this case, because we want to make sure the student actually enters a number, under validation, we're going to put that this needs to be a number. So, because sometimes students, they look at student ID and they want to put in their ASU right, you know, so this makes them fill in their actual number. There is a way to actually then enter a value range. I haven't done it yet, so, you know, I would basically make the student enter 10 digits and not like 9 or 11, that would give an error message. It looked a little complicated to me, so I haven't gone
I
down
didn't
that
do
path.
that in mine
So,
either, yeah.
you know, yeah. All right, so basically, on this form, let's see here, the student has to complete step 1 with their own information, and then the student has to also enter the faculty's name in step 2, name and email. So we're gonna repeat this process here. And we can copy that. There. Okay, I'm not going to repeat setting the title for that field because we've covered that. Okay, so basically with this particular example, this is what the student would fill out. So now what we need to do is we need to change the participant to then move to the next person on the form who will either fill it out or sign or do something with it. So we're at participant number 2. This person will have to sign. So we're going to go to signature fields, and there we're going to slide or drag the signature field over to that particular spot. And for example, here we could say that this is the chair signature. All right. We want the chair to indicate whether they approve or not. So we go back to data fields, and we have, for example, radio buttons. So we're going to slide a radio button over the first, next to the yes here, and the system will automatically ask us if we need 2 radio buttons or more. So let's say that you have 5 options, you can increase this to 5, and the system will automatically create 5 radio buttons. In this case, I only need 2. And it creates 2 there, and I just have to slide one over or drag one over. And again, I need to make this required. So we're going to double click on that. Call it chair approval.
When you select 2 radio buttons and you make it required, does it make it required that you?
They just have to select one.
Yeah. So they have to select one, correct.
Got it.
Yeah. So this is assigned to participant 2. Everything else is good. We don't need to set anything else. So even though both of these show that they need to be selected, but on the form, eventually only one person needs to select, or the person only needs to select one button. Okay, are we good so far? Yeah. You can see all of these are assigned to participant 2, whose color is blue. So both the radio buttons are blue, and then the top right corner of the signature field is blue. So the next step is going to be, there are only 2 participants. So we're going to click on add a new participant. Then we have participant number 3. We select that participant. And that's already filled out. That's going to be always Michael Schoon who's going to sign off on this. So we'll do the same thing. We're going to have 2 buttons, 2 radio buttons. We put those in place. And then we have 1 signature field. So we move the signature there. If one option is that the person just has to initial it, and then you could just drag the initial field over there. And then we need another participant, which is going to be the last person. And where did you say you saw those other name fields?
It's under signer info fields, so it says signature fields and then signer info fields.
Okay,
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
yeah. So we can drag it from there. Okay, so then it's automatically, I don't know why there's 2 now, but. And then email.
Yeah, what's a signature?
Sorry?
What's a signature? Is it an email? It says signature instead of email.
Oh, okay, my bad, yeah. So we can just delete that one. signature. Go. And then what we'll do is for the date, if under signer info fields, you drag the date over here, then the date will automatically fill out when the person signs the form, and they don't have to actually do this. All right, so like Melissa said, you can come back to your template and make changes, okay? Or you can delete fields, you can, move fields around, you can actually always go back and double click on it and change the name of a field if you feel that's necessary. You can do all that. Any questions at this point?
If you need to change the participant, like which participant does which fields, you just select them and then change the participant, the recipient.
The signer. So for example, step 2, if you need to change that to someone else to sign.
Okay, so basically, let me go back to participant 1, which is the student. So basically, we're just at this point setting up the fields that in this case, the student is going to fill out these fields. So at this point, we don't know who this is going to be, who's going to sign the form in step number 2. So the student fills out this information, and then when they submit it, that's when it will go to the chair, and they will actually check off do they approve or not and sign it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Maybe. So like when those fields right there, the one that you're on the right, what is it set to? It's set to participant. Is it set to something in particular?
When you send your form
Yeah.
out, you can put you could put the participants' emails in there, so it goes to each
But
person.
they're a participant 1, 2, or 3, is that?
Like, yeah.
No. So what the person who fills out the form is not going to see that they're participant 1. They don't know this. This is all behind the scenes.
Okay.
So when they see it, all they will see is the fields that are now yellow, kind of light yellow. That's what they will see, and it will indicate that they need to fill out these forms.
Okay.
If they skip a field and it's required, then the form will tell them, or the system will tell them that they need to fill out the information is missing.
Okay.
But if you want to go back to the template later on and you want to make a change, you have to make sure that you're looking at the field for the right participant.
Right.
So I don't know if that's maybe where you were going with this.
So, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So let's say you want to change, the approval button, then you want to make sure that you have to go to participant number 2 to activate those fields, and then you can work on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And
Or you could just right click on it and then double click, I think it's double click, and you'll see the edit, you can edit it that way as well.
that's correct. Yeah, there's more than one way of doing it. Yeah. And when you first work with it, I learned it by trial and error.
Yeah.
It's like I was adding fields and then I realized, wait a minute, the first participant shouldn't fill all of these out. So then I had to go back and change it.
Right.
Yeah, I had a form with 8 participants, so it was real fun.
Yeah, so it's
So it'd be
definitely
like a
been,
full day.
on the one side, a bit of a frustrating process. And on the other side, then rewarding when it's done to say, okay, I got this far. Okay, so then when our form is done, we can click on save. And it will just show your form and say, okay, what's the next thing you want to do? So the next thing we want to do is we'll click on home. And then we will go ahead and publish a web form. Again, we can either add a file or we can just drag it in here. So in this case, I haven't figured out because we saved it as a template.
Yeah, if you add files, you
Right.
can see your recent templates in there. and then-
Correct, yeah, but I haven't figured out yet how to drag them, when you've just created a recent template. Yeah,
I don't know if you can do that.
so we go look in the templates. And here's our AdobeSign practice form. So we're checking that one off and clicking on attach. And then again, the web form name automatically loads from the template that we used. If you want to use it, give it a different name, you can. So now what we're going to do is we're going to assign the roles to the people who will actually be using this form. So the first person is going to be the form filler. In this case, that was the student. I find it practical to do this in the office where I have my two monitors. So I can have the Word form on one screen and I can be working here in a web form page on the other monitor, so I can kind of follow the logic of my form. This form was pretty simple, so it's easy to follow, but it might be a little more complicated when you have like 5 people who need to
Yep.
fill out the form.
Yep.
You know, so you want to keep that in
Learn
mind.
that the hard way.
So the student is the form filler. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add a participant who in this case is the chair. So what we do is we add a participant when we don't know who the next person is, who is going to fill the form or sign the form. Okay? Which in this case, we don't know it because the student is providing us with the information.
Right.
If the form always follows a specific route and always goes to the same people, then we can definitely skip the add participants and we go to countersigners. Okay? But in this case, we don't know who the chair is going to be, so we let the student fill out that part. All right. So then we're going to add countersigners. In this case, that was Mike Schoon.
Right, Michael.
There we go. So after the chair signs the form and submits it, it will then automatically go to Mike Schoon, okay? And then I could add me, click on add me on the right side, which then means that after Mike signs the form will automatically come to me. Something that's, to me at least, quite frustrating is that once you're done with the page
Yeah.
and you click on next, you cannot come back to this page and make any changes.
Yeah.
So
Found that out the hard way too.
if you make a mistake or if you need to make a change, you have to start
Right.
the process on this page all over again.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
If anyone finds out differently, please tell us.
Yeah, I Googled it. You cannot change it once it's in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So,
there's actually no way to officially delete it.
correct.
You have to just hide it,
Yeah, yeah.
which is quite
You
annoying.
can
as well.
you can delete the template that we created in the previous step and get rid of it, but you cannot delete a web form.
That's
You
interesting.
can hide it.
Recipient end, I've experienced that where I think Cindy, you've sent me something before, or someone on the events team, and then the correction needed to be made to the form.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, I'm still receiving the other form reminders for the other form,
Oh.
but they couldn't delete it.
Yeah, you have to hide it.
Yeah.
That's the only way.
You can hide them and you can inactivate them, but you cannot delete them, yeah, which is very frustrating. And the thing is also that if you would change text to your actual form, not the fields,
Yep.
but the text, then you would have to go all the way back to your Word
Original
document
Word document
and make the
start
changes
again.
in your Word document and then go back and upload it again as a template and put all those fields back in, save the template, and then create a new web form. So
Yeah, I had
it's-
to do that a couple of times, so, which is why it took me an entire day to do
Yeah.
one form.
So it's in the beginning, it's very time consuming. It can be a little bit frustrating, but I think once it's set up
Yeah.
and it works well, then it's set up and you can make it work, you know? So,
So there's no way to cancel something that's already gone. Is there a way to cancel something that's already gone
You
out?
can. I
If-
think I did this.
You can
I've done that
cancel
before,
something
but I
that
haven't
went
sent it.
out.
For a web
Or
page,
you
I've
can-
sent it, or a web form.
Differently.
I've sent it differently.
You can change reminders too. I do that a lot. It'll stop sending
what else I was
reminders.
gonna say about this page? I think that's about it. Yeah.
And when we say that we're sending it through a web form,
Yeah,
We're not necessarily putting this on the web, are we? Or
it's a link.
It's a link.
You
Well, yeah,
can't put it
well-
on the web.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a few slides. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
All
Leah.
right. No, that's fine, no worries. Okay, so I'm clicking on next. It's processing the document. And now we have our form with everything on it. Now, we still see here on the right side, the same, we have all this stuff here, so we can still make corrections here. But we have to realize if we make the corrections here, they are not made on the templates that we worked on. So for example, here under name, I realize I didn't make this required, so I'm going to do that now so that the student has to fill this out. So I fixed it here on my web form, but it is not fixed on my template. So I would have to go back and fix it on my template as well. Okay?
Yeah.
So then we're going to click on save. And as you can see here on the top, it actually shows you the URL. So you can click on copy web from URL, and then you can put that in some document so the form appears online. And then the student will see the form as we can see it here, and they will see, okay, here are the fields that the student needs to fill out. When they click on submit, it will go to the chair. The chair will have to select approve yes or no and sign, and then they submit, then it goes to Mike, and when he submits, then it comes to me. Okay, so here's what I suggest, because it has a URL and it has an embedded code. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is between the two or how you would use them differently. What I did was I created an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of the documents that I've created, and I copy and paste the URL and the embedded code, and then I indicate if my form is active or not, if it's been tested, because I think it's a great idea to test your form before you send it out to a student or put the link on the website. So if it's been tested, and then I have a column for good to go. Now, the tricky thing is, that I'm going to go back to previous page. I can't go back, so just a second here. So in order to test it, you would have to enter countersigners, let's say, within your office, so that somebody takes the role of the student, fills out the form. Let's say it goes to Melissa, Melissa signs it as the chair, it goes to Lindsay, Lindsay signs it as if she were Mike Schoon, and then it comes to me. So that's kind of the way you can set it up to test the form, but then the tricky thing is that was your test. So then you have to do it all over again to actually put in the right people, Mike Schoon and whoever, with their email address, and let them know this is now functional and this is now the way this form is going to work. So there is a bit of double work there, but it is a great idea to test the form. When Sanjana was working on the form, sometimes at some point she filled out her email and it was automatically filling out as well as the professor's email.
Yeah.
And so we figured out that the reason was that because we had put the signer's email field in the professor's email area, instead of just designating it as a regular email field that was not connected to the filler. So there are some of these troubleshooting things that you will run into, and so that's why it's good to just test the form. At some point, instead of my signature showing up in the sales representative field, it created a separate field outside, and we had to go and figure that out as well. So I do have a step-by-step document in Word that I'm going to send around, and it has information on some of the bells and whistles that the system has and some of the troubleshooting. This is very much going to be a live document, and I'm going to be adding to that as we move along and as we learn together. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So, any questions?
I have a question. Have you, Lee, or anyone else had any trouble with,
How did you set up a group?
oh,
I guess.
Okay, so the instructions, I'll share it. The instructions will be in the how to do that will be in the instructions.
Okay.
But basically, there's a link to an ASU website, and then that's where you set up a group.
Okay, they
And
set
we-
it up for you.
You have to request it, and they did it like within a day.
Okay.
And we really did two things. So we set up a group, SourceGrad, and we requested an email, SourceGrad eForms, so that all the forms will go to that email.
Okay.
Yeah, because otherwise, if they all come to me, for example, even if I'm the one who's processing them, let's say 90% of the time, let's say I'm out sick or I'm on vacation, then the forms are going to sit in my mailbox and nobody's going to do anything with them. But if we put them, if we create an email address specifically for these forms, then everybody can have access to those.
okay, so basically one of the troubles that I've had with using a form like this that like a student starts and sends to the next person is, well, either filling out a wrong address, which isn't anything that you can do, but have you had any trouble with outside of ASU email addresses like Gmail or Yahoo or anything like that? Because sometimes I hear that like people are like, I can't find it, I never got it, you know, things like that. And so that's why I've always hesitated against using these kinds of forms. So I was just wondering if anybody else had
I've
any
had
kind of
that
trouble.
issue. I've had that issue of people use their Gmail and I say, I sent you, you know, your forms, and they're like, I can't find them, and they usually end up in their spam folders.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But you didn't have any problems with ASU email addresses, Kristen? Like if somebody does first name dot last name is okay?
Yep.
Okay, because before in the olden days, it was like if you didn't use the ASU right at asu.edu, it like screwed up everything, which is impossible because who knows everybody's ASU right IDs. So, okay, that's just one thing I wanted to clarify because that's always the trouble that I've had with forms and with other people sending it to other people, especially because then can you find it? Like if a student initiates it and sends it to the next person, that next person can't find it, they're probably going to come to you and be like, where's my form? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I haven't sent it that way. I've sent it where it goes to the student and then it goes to whoever the approver is. I haven't done it like a published web one, but also I just have to send them reminders saying, hey, can you look for this? Because I sent it 2 weeks ago, you know?
Okay. Maybe I can talk with someone later. I don't want to take up all the time, but that's my thing. I'm trying to figure out, like, should I initiate the form and send it to the student to send it to their supervisor? Or is it something I can allow somebody external, like a student or provider, to start the form? Just trying to figure out a way to like outsmart it and have less possibilities for it getting messed up.
Yeah,
By
on our side, Caroline, we've only tested it, and I think the way we will use the forms is by putting links on the website and in the handbooks, not necessarily by sending out the links by email. Although we might do that. I think the preference is always to use an ASU email address, both in sending our email out and in people using the form when they fill it out.
Actually, I know what I was gonna say. The issue wasn't that they use a non-ASU email, it's that they have their ASU email forwarded to their personal email, and that's where the issue comes up for me, is that they have it forwarded from ASU to a Gmail, and then they can't find it when it comes to them.
Okay.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
But technically, they should be able to go into their ASU email
And still
see
find
it
it?
and still find it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just have to literally send out extra emails reminding them, hey, and I've checked, I'm like, I see your email's forwarded, please check and look for this document. So,
Do you know who does it come from? Like,
it comes from AdobeSign.
AdobeSign.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and I did forget to say that once you have created your web form, you will get an email in Outlook that says you have created a web form. So, and it will include the URL and the embedded link as well. Yeah.
So if you need a student to fill out a form that you've created, you send them that URL. URL link. You send them that URL link.
Well, from our side, the way we would do it is the links would be available in the handbook and on our website. But if a student says, hey, you know, where can I find this document? It's very likely that I will just go to my Excel spreadsheet and I will send them the link that way. Yeah.
I have another question, Lee, sorry. We didn't get to see, like, grab the URL and show us kind of what it looked like. I guess my question is, when the student clicks on the URL, that takes them right to the form.
Correct.
If they're going to send it to their faculty member and they enter that email in the form and they finish it, and I guess there's a save or something, the form knows to send it to that second participant.
Okay, so I'll show you an example, just a second here.
Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing.
In DocuSign, you had to like have a flow. You had to enter a flow and also fill out the form. So that's kind of what I'm wondering.
I think they sort of do have to fill out the participants in there, if I recall.
Not just on the form, right? You don't just enter an email on the form and like it knows where to go next, right?
I think that's what he was
I
saying
think
with
so.
That's
the cosign or whatever the
Yeah.
language was, like
the
person
participant
that-
role.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
you still have to do that.
Okay, so this is basically the way the student would see the form or the person who is going to fill it out, okay? So I'm just gonna quickly do this.
This is where they fill out the person it needs to go to.
Correct. Okay, so at this point, the student has filled out all the fields that they need to fill out, and almost. This is a different form, you know.
But we're relying on them to type that in correctly,
Yeah.
to know who to send it to. Yeah.
Student has filled out everything, so they go to the bottom and they would see a button that says submit. So at that point, they submit, and because here they fill in step 2, they filled out the name, the email of, in this case, the co-chair, that then the form will automatically go to that email.
So then when Melissa gets it, she would get the approval box and the signature box.
Yes, so then when Melissa would get it, then this area here is what would actually activate for her. So she would approve yes or no and sign, and then click on submit again, and it would automatically go to SOSGrad email@asu.edu. Does that make sense, Caroline?
And then as the person that's monitoring this, can you see where something is in the workflow?
Yes, so basically, the person who created the form, either me or the SOSGrad eForms email address, an email will drop into that box every time that somebody fills out the form.
Okay.
So, you know, if a student starts the form, it will say, you know, so-and-so started the form. If Melissa signs the form, it says, you'll get an email that says Melissa signed the form. Then it will go to Lindsay. If it says then Lindsay signs, it will say Lindsay signed the form. Then it goes to Mike Schoon and it will say Mike Schoon signed the form. And so then it will have a different message at the end that says the form is ready for you to be signed or processed. Something to that effect. Yeah,
And I think everybody gets an email at the end saying the form's completed and they can download it.
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, thank you.
Like, can you see that there's a workflow tab or section of AdobeSign? There's nothing there. And so that's what I was wondering.
Oh, you want to go under manage. If you go under manage,
Oh,
it will
manage,
show you
right.
the ones that you still have out for signature and like who has it.
Yeah.
Okay,
That should be under manage.
got it.
Does it say like in progress? Can you show us
Usually,
that?
like,
Yeah, it's up there.
For you, and those were those ones.
So, well, yeah, here on the top where it says manage. Okay, you click on that. So there's different things you can do there. So first of all, you see there's nothing in progress. There's nothing waiting for you. And then you can also go back to your templates here. And if you hover over this row, you can either open it. Yeah, here you can just strange. Okay, this one. Okay, this is the form that I opened but didn't submit yet, so that's why it's there. But Adobe Sign practice form, you can either open it or you can edit it. Click on edit. And that will open the form. Remember, excuse me, on the web form, we made a correction here. That's not done on this template form, so. Yeah, and you can save it. We can go back to manage. And we can go back to templates. And we can do something else now. You can also go to your web forms. But like we said, if you want to, let's say we want to hide this document. So we can open it. And then we can click on the side here and we can hide web form.
You can also disable it up there.
And yes, you can disable it. It's not very nice.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.